You pick up your phone after dinner to check one message. Then you watch a video, read the news, and answer a comment. By the time you turn off the screen, 45 minutes have disappeared. You may think the only cost is a later bedtime, but the more important cost may show up the next day, when a familiar name takes longer to surface, or you reread the same paragraph because it refuses to stick. The evening habit we are examining is not simply using a phone. It is carrying bright, stimulating, endlessly available content into the final part of the night, especially when it delays sleep or keeps interrupting it. The device itself is not proven to cause dementia, and an occasional late night will not erase your memory. The concern is the repeated pattern. Bedtime drifts later, the brain stays alert, sleep becomes shorter or more fragmented, and memory loses some of the conditions it needs to work well. In this video, we will separate 5 ways this habit can interfere with memory. Some affect what your brain stores overnight. Others affect whether you can pay attention well enough to form a memory the next day. Near the end, you will get a simple 4-part evening reset that does not require throwing away your phone or living by candlelight. The final distinction may be the most useful of all, because what feels like memory loss is sometimes partly an attention problem created by poor sleep. First, an important boundary. Forgetfulness has many possible causes, including stress, depression, hearing loss, medication effects, thyroid problems, vitamin deficiencies, sleep apnea, and neurological disease. This video cannot determine the cause of anyone's symptoms. New confusion, facial drooping, one-sided weakness, trouble speaking, fainting, or a sudden major change in thinking requires urgent medical evaluation. Gradual or persistent changes should be discussed with a qualified professional rather than blamed on age or a screen. To understand why the evening matters, picture memory as a 3-stage process. First, the brain must take information in. This is called encoding. Second, it must stabilize and organize that information. This is called consolidation. Third, it must find the information later, which is retrieval. A problem at any one of these stages can feel like, my memory is failing, even though the underlying issue may be different. The hippocampus, a structure deep in the brain, plays a major role in forming many new memories. During sleep, the brain does not simply switch off. It moves through coordinated stages, including non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. Across the night, patterns of brain activity help strengthen and reorganize recently learned information. Researchers often compare this to moving files from a crowded desk into a more stable filing system. The analogy is not perfect, but it captures the central point. Learning does not end when the experience ends. Sleep is part of the process. Now consider what happens when an evening habit repeatedly takes time away from that process. The first pathway is bedtime drift. Bedtime drift rarely feels dramatic. You do not announce, "Tonight I will reduce my sleep." You say, "Just one more episode," or "I only need to reply to this." 10 minutes becomes 30. 30 becomes an hour. Because the delay happens in small pieces, it feels harmless. Yet if your morning wake time stays fixed because of work, medication, caregiving, prayer, pets, or habit, every delayed bedtime reduces the available sleep window. Think of sleep as a train that must travel through several stations. If you board late but still get off at the same morning stop, the train cannot visit every station for the same amount of time. You may still sleep, but the night has less room to unfold. Over one evening, this may simply produce fatigue. Repeated across many evenings, the pattern can interfere with both next-day learning and overnight memory processing. This is where people often make a reasonable but incomplete assumption. They say, "I function on 6 hours," because they can still make breakfast, drive familiar roads, and complete routine tasks. But functioning is not the same as performing at your best. Subtle changes may appear first in sustained attention, mental speed, working memory, or the ability to learn unfamiliar information. Controlled research has found that sleep loss can reduce hippocampal engagement during new learning and worsen later retention. Here is a practical test. For 7 days, write down the time you intended to stop using your device, the time you actually stopped, and the time you tried to sleep. Do not estimate from memory the next morning. Check the device's screen time record if available. The goal is not to judge yourself. It is to reveal whether the habit is taking 10 minutes or 90. But lost time is only the first pathway. The second is more subtle because even when you get into bed on schedule, your brain may not yet have received a strong signal that night has begun. The second pathway is light at the wrong biological time. Your body uses an internal timing system called the circadian rhythm. Light is one of its strongest signals. In the daytime, light helps support alertness and tells the brain that it is time to be active. In the evening, darkness helps the body prepare for sleep. Melatonin is one of the hormones involved in signaling biological night. It is not an on-off switch or a knockout drug. It is closer to a timing message. Bright light close to the eyes, including light from some screens, can push against that evening message. Laboratory studies have found that evening exposure to light-emitting devices can reduce melatonin, increase alertness, delay circadian timing, or lengthen the time it takes to fall asleep. The size of the effect depends on brightness, wavelength, duration, distance, prior daytime light exposure, and individual sensitivity. That nuance matters. A dim screen used briefly is not equivalent to a bright tablet held close to the face for several hours. Imagine trying to close a shop while customers keep walking through the door. The staff may eventually finish, but the closing process starts later and becomes less orderly. Evening light can act like another customer entering just as the brain is preparing for night. Blue light is not the only issue. Night mode may reduce some short wavelength light, yet the screen can remain bright, stimulating, and time-consuming. Evidence on blue light filters and glasses is mixed. Treat them as one tool, not a complete solution. Try this distinction tonight. Do not ask only, "Is the screen blue?" Ask, "How bright is it? How close is it? How long am I using it? And is it delaying sleep?" Those 4 questions are more useful than blaming one color. The third pathway is mental activation. Many people reduce brightness and assume the problem is solved. Then they use the dimmed phone for upsetting messages, arguments, financial news, intense drama, or competitive games. The eyes see less light, but the mind still receives novelty, conflict, reward, and unfinished business. The brain is designed to notice change. A paper book has an ending point. A conversation ends when the other person leaves. A feed has no natural boundary. Each swipe offers the possibility of something more interesting, more alarming, or more personally relevant. That variable reward makes stopping difficult. You do not need to be addicted for the design to extend your evening. Now picture the nervous system as a car approaching a garage. Sleep requires slowing down, turning, and parking. Stimulating content keeps tapping the accelerator. You may feel physically tired while mentally rehearsing what you read, planning a reply, or wondering what the next update will say. The result can be a longer transition into sleep, even after the device is finally placed down. Why does this matter for memory? Because sleep opportunity and actual sleep are not identical. Spending 8 hours in bed does not guarantee 8 hours of sleep. If the first hour is spent scrolling, and the next half hour is spent mentally activated, the brain receives a shorter and potentially more disrupted night. A useful correction is to separate screen time from content intensity. A video call with family may be emotionally comforting. A simple crossword may feel different from breaking news. An e-reader on a dim setting may affect you differently from rapidly changing videos. The aim is not to declare every digital activity harmful. It is to identify the activities that keep your brain in daytime mode. One evening, conduct a small experiment. Choose a low-stimulation final hour. Avoid arguments, work messages, dramatic news, and autoplay. Replace them with a familiar routine. Prepare clothes for tomorrow. Listen to calm audio. Stretch gently if it is safe for you. Read something undemanding, or talk quietly with someone you trust. Then notice whether sleepiness arrives more naturally. This is not a medical test, but it can reveal whether content intensity is part of your pattern. The next pathway is easy to miss because you may not remember it happening. The fourth pathway is sleep fragmentation. Some people fall asleep with the phone beside the pillow. A notification lights the room. A vibration creates a brief awakening. An incoming message triggers a quick glance at the clock. You may return to sleep within minutes and have little memory of the interruption. Yet sleep can be disrupted without producing a vivid morning recollection. Think of sleep as a long musical performance. A brief interruption does not destroy the entire concert, but repeated interruptions break the continuity. The brain still sleeps, yet the architecture of the night can become less stable. The phone is not always the main cause. Pain, hot flashes, urinary symptoms, restless legs, alcohol, certain medications, caregiving duties, and sleep apnea can all fragment sleep. In particular, loud snoring, witnessed pauses in breathing, gasping, morning headaches, or pronounced daytime sleepiness deserve professional attention. Moving a phone will not treat an airway that repeatedly closes during sleep. Still, notifications are one of the more controllable causes. Place the device far enough away that you cannot reach it automatically. Use Do Not Disturb while allowing emergency calls from selected contacts if needed. Disable non-essential lock screen alerts. If the phone is your alarm, turn the display away from the bed or use an inexpensive clock. This step has another benefit. It removes the temptation to check the time after a normal nighttime awakening. Clock checking can start a chain of calculation. It is 2:17. If I fall asleep now, I have 4 hours and 43 minutes. That calculation raises pressure, and pressure makes sleep harder. The phone becomes both a clock and a doorway into stimulation. At this point, you may be wondering whether the memory problem happens mainly during the night. Not always. The fifth pathway occurs the following day, and it explains why many people mislabel an attention failure as a storage failure. The fifth pathway is the tired brain illusion. Imagine someone introduces herself at a gathering. You are tired, thinking about the drive home, and only half listening. 10 minutes later, you cannot recall her name. It feels as if the name was stored and then lost. But it may never have been encoded clearly in the first place. Attention is the front door of memory. If attention is weak, information enters as a blurred impression. Later, retrieval fails because the brain has little to retrieve. This is why poor sleep can produce complaints such as, "I read the page but nothing stayed," "I put my keys down without noticing," or "I forgot what I was about to say." Some of these experiences involve memory, but the starting problem may be reduced alertness and attention. A camera provides a useful analogy. If the picture is out of focus when taken, no filing system can recover details that were never captured. Better storage cannot repair a missing image. Sleep loss can also slow mental processing. When the brain needs an extra moment to retrieve a word, people may panic and interpret the delay as proof of serious decline. Sometimes a word-finding pause is benign, especially when the word returns later. More concerning patterns include repeatedly forgetting recent conversations, getting lost in familiar places, difficulty managing routine finances or medications, marked personality change, or worsening function noticed by others. Those patterns deserve assessment, regardless of screen habits. Now the larger loop becomes visible. A person stays up late with a device, sleeps poorly, and feels mentally foggy. To compensate, they drink caffeine late, nap for a long time, move less during the day, and become less sleepy at night. Then they return to the device because they are awake. The original habit is no longer a single behavior. It is part of a cycle. This is especially important after age 50. Sleep often becomes lighter and more easily interrupted with age, while pain, urinary symptoms, caregiving, medical conditions, and medication schedules may add further disruption. At the same time, older adults still benefit from sleep-related memory stabilization, even though the pattern of sleep and memory changes across the lifespan. The goal is not to expect sleep at 70 to look exactly like sleep at 20. It is to protect the sleep opportunity and continuity that are realistically available. So how do you use this information without becoming afraid of every evening message? Here is a 4-part reset. Step 1. Measure the real pattern for 1 week. Record 4 things: when you stop stimulating content, when you turn off the main light, when you attempt sleep, and how you feel the next morning. Add 1 brief note about memory or attention, such as lost track while reading, clear morning, or forgot appointment until reminder. Do not score yourself harshly. You are looking for relationships, not proving a diagnosis. Also record obvious confounders: alcohol, late caffeine, unusual stress, pain, illness, or a long nap. After 7 days, ask whether later screen nights consistently line up with shorter sleep, longer sleep onset, more awakenings, or foggier mornings. One night proves little. A repeated pattern is more informative. Step 2. Create a realistic digital boundary. Do not begin with a rule so strict that you abandon it after 2 days. Choose a boundary you can repeat. For example, stop high-stimulation content 30 to 60 minutes before your intended sleep time. Put work messages, news, arguments, shopping, and autoplay outside that window. If you need the device for an audiobook, prayer, relaxation, or contact with family, set it up first, dim it, and avoid switching between applications. Use a reminder labeled "Begin closing the day," not merely "Go to bed." Bedtime is an outcome. Closing the day is a sequence. Step 3. Replace rather than remove. A habit leaves an empty space when it disappears. Empty spaces invite old behavior. Prepare a replacement that is easy, familiar, and mildly pleasant. Keep a paper book nearby. Place tomorrow's medication organizer or clothing where it belongs. Write down unresolved tasks so the brain does not have to rehearse them. Use low, safe lighting. Choose calm audio with a sleep timer. The replacement should not feel like punishment. The objective is to give the nervous system a predictable landing path. Step 4. Protect the morning and investigate persistent problems. Wake at a reasonably consistent time, obtain daytime light, and be physically active within your abilities. These cues help strengthen the difference between day and night. If you nap, notice whether a late or long nap makes it harder to sleep at night. Avoid changing prescribed medication on your own, even if you suspect it affects sleep. Bring the full list, including over-the-counter products, to a clinician or pharmacist and ask, could any of these be affecting alertness, sleep continuity, or memory? Seek professional evaluation when memory changes are persistent, progressive, affecting daily function, or noticed by people close to you. nia.nih.gov. Ask about hearing, mood, sleep apnea, thyroid function, nutritional deficiencies, medication effects, and other appropriate causes. The aim is not to demand every test. It is to make sure a reversible contributor is not overlooked. Here is the central insight. The evening screen habit may harm memory indirectly, not because the phone reaches into the brain and deletes information, but because it can steal time, delay biological night, maintain mental arousal, fragment sleep, and weaken next-day attention. Each effect may be small on its own. Repeated together, they can become noticeable. Tonight, take one immediate action. Decide where the phone will spend the final part of the night. Not in your hand, not under the pillow. Give it a specific place. Activate the settings you need for genuine emergencies, and choose what will replace the final scroll. Then observe rather than assume. If your mornings become clearer, you have learned something useful about your own pattern. If they do not, that is also useful information, because it tells you not to stop at the easiest explanation. Your memory deserves more than fear, and your sleep deserves more than whatever an endless feed happens to offer. Protect the conditions in which the brain can do its nighttime work. The goal is not a perfect evening, it is a repeatable one. If this explanation helped you understand the connection between sleep and memory, subscribe for calm, evidence-conscious health guidance that protects your independence without using panic. Share this video with someone who says they are just bad at remembering, but keeps taking the phone to bed. A quiet mind does not guarantee a perfect memory, but it gives memory a better chance to do its job.